Hello, and thank you for joining us for another segment of Supreme Feminine Essence, the gifts you were born with. With me this segment is Gayle, and Bonnie she's totally amazing. She's also a friend, I have to say that. She's a sexual women's health advocate and the founder of Sex Butter, which we all love. So welcome, Bonnie.
Thank you. Welcome.
So share with us your story, because it's why you created Sex Butter, and it's why you got into helping women in certain stages of their life.
Yep, absolutely. And very unexpected at the same time, too. Because, what happened to me really was that when I was 41, I was like in this space where emotionally and mentally I was really excited because I was moving into my 40s, like best time of my life, feeling good, feeling young, youthful, and my body had some other plans for me, which were completely unexpected. Literally, my body shut down overnight, and when I say shut down, I started having all of the effects of menopause. Like literally, one day I didn't have anything, and the next day, walking around was excruciatingly painful. I was moody. I was having hot flashes and all of these things. And I was 41 and I was still having my period. Okay. So I didn't really understand exactly what was going on. So I was talking to my friends and none of them were going through anything, and talking to my mother, who never had any kind of hormone issues because she was on hormone replacement therapy from the time, she started menopause. So I thought I was like this anomaly who was going through all this craziness just because maybe I stressed myself out so much, And then finally, eventually, I don't like to go to doctors, I'm going to be honest, but I did go to the OBGYN, and the doctor told me to have more sex and use lube. And I was like, wow, is that going to help all of this? And they're like, no, but it'll help some of it. So I was like, all right, okay. So I go around and I go out shopping for lube. And now you have to remember, 9 years ago, not a lot of people were really into the organic thing. Not the way they are today. And
right.
It's still a small percentage of the population today, but it's much greater than it was then. Well, at that point in time, I was already eating 50% organic. So I was kind of into reading labels, looking at what ingredients were in things, and I start looking into the ingredients of lube, and I'm like, seriously, like in shock.
It's a chemistry project.
Really, I mean, things that you clean your ovens with, things that, are put in antifreeze in your car. And you're supposed to apply this to the most sensitive part of your entire body, like your biggest mucous membrane, which literally sucks up anything that goes near it,
Right.
And I was like, you got to be kidding. Like, I wouldn't eat this. So I'm not going to apply that, to my most private parts, which are already burning and stinging to begin with. Let me just tell you that. So, I didn't know that you could use, anything that currently is out there today. That, there's some natural products that are out there, but I wasn't aware of them, and nobody was talking about it. So I went and I had somebody create a formulation for me to use, and while that was happening, met a cancer survivor who was going through the same thing as me, and I said, look, I don't know if this is going to work for you, but I'm going to send you like a week's worth of this stuff, and I want you to use a little bit every day, and do not have sex for at least a week. She was married, it was ruining her relationship, and I said, just try it, and let's see what happens. And, she called me up, and it was working from day one because what I didn't know at the time, even urinating was painful for her. So this is the first day that she had, pain-free day, period. And then a week later, everybody's all happy. They've now consummated, and my first version of Sex Butter is born.
That's awesome.
First version.
That's awesome.
So now I'm happy, because at least now I know there's healthy alternatives out there.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk about changing bodies and femininity. There's so much that goes on in this point in our life when we hit our 40s and going into our 50s. There's actually a lot of women who start menopause in their 30s. And for those of us who are 50 and don't, still have our 28 days or almost, I actually started to experience being 10 days late each time starting 3 months ago. So I'm like, dang it, I'm in peri-menopause! That little brat wants to get me.
Peri-menopause, here we come.
So, yay, let's talk about this fun stuff. So, what's actually happening?
So actually what's happening is we're losing our estrogen. So that affects a lot of things. But we're also hormonally a lot of times imbalanced. So, like mood swings, very, very common. Getting upset a lot easier, just not having patience. Even brain fog, I could be talking to you in the middle of talking about something and all of a sudden, Zoom, it's like I never had the conversation and I was like in the middle of nowhere, right? And seriously, and I'm looking at you and I'm trying to remember and I can't get back to it. I mean, it's as if I never had a conversation about anything with you.
Uh-huh.
Scary. At first it's scary. And so now I write everything down. And I try and realize when I'm a little overboard versus not, emotionally.
Right.
I try and do things to relax myself. I've been getting better about exercising and things like that. Okay, so those are some of the things that are happening. And now what's physically happening with your body, like with your vagina in particular, is you're losing your little protective barrier down there called the vaginal lining, which is your protective barrier for penetration. And then the tissues are also not hydrated enough, so a lot of times they're drying out, and you're not, in many cases, not always, not secreting enough lubrication. So that's, I think, the gland of Babylon or something like that.
So they say you get rid of, I've heard that they call it drying up or whatever. But that's absolutely not the case for me yet, and it's almost...
Doesn't happen to everybody.
Okay, good.
Okay. And not all of these symptoms will happen to everybody. It's like I had hot flashes. Now I barely ever have hot flashes, but I know women that have been out of, like not had their period for a lot longer than me, and they're still having like really bad hot flashes now. So, everybody experiences things a little differently. It can affect your sleep, no question. It can, where you don't sleep as much. I've heard that from a lot of women. So, it's changing bodies, and what can we do to kind of feel comfortable in our skin anyways. A lot of times when we lose our estrogen, we also lose some of our femininity, like feeling like a woman, even though we are women, and I actually have experienced some of that and have to work toward feeling feminine on many occasions. Because I can be both, you know what I mean? Like I have a very logical mind and I can be in my head and not be in my body. And so that doesn't happen to everybody though, but I've heard women say that, they feel a lot more masculine.
So that's a good reason why to have this topic on our show, because we need to keep within the feminine and work on those areas to bring back in the feminine when we're, I almost use the word suffering, that's not the case, when we're experiencing the changes that go on. And I'm glad you said each one is uniquely different, because that will, right there, will eliminate a lot of fear and all that. So when you lose your estrogen, and a lot of people have hormone replacements, but it's supposedly not a good thing because there's not a bioidentical one that's organic, correct?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
So I can't honestly say one way or another.
Okay.
Just because something is bioidentical doesn't necessarily mean it's organic. They can be using plants that are not organic. Bioidentical just means that it's coming from something that's mimicking.
Right, okay.
And so they usually bioidenticals are usually made from plants as opposed to coming, let's say, from an animal hormone.
Okay, I see. All right. And then if it's not bioidentical, then that's the harmful one, correct? I see. Okay.
Yeah. Well, bioidenticals can be harmful too. You know, it's all going to depend on who you're going to talk to.
Wow.
What they say, okay, the rule of thumb is, you know, if you have female cancers in your family, running along in your family anywhere, that, you know, hormones can help help your body have too much of the female hormones that are causing like these kinds of things. So hormone replacement therapy is not for everybody. My mom died of cancer that she got from hormone replacement therapy. We did not have any history of female cancers in our family. And then my mom got it, and she was a big time on hormone replacement therapy, the one that they pulled. So, you know, everybody's, like I said, everybody's different, but I'm choosing not to use any form of hormone replacement therapy because of that.
Right. Well, thank you. That's amazing. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about how our body changes. Suffering, a lot of people suffer in silence. That's why we're doing this segment with you. And there's shame about it too. So tell us what you know about that.
Especially, okay, so when I'm talking about suffering in silence, like 15 to 30 million women, according to the World Health Organization, are experiencing sexual pain. And there's very little that you could find to read about it. You know, it's not a topic that comes out, and most men don't even know that women are going through this, even if it's their own partner. And the reason for this is that, first of all, it doesn't make you feel good to say, like, you know, my most intimate moments with you hurt. They're painful to me. It's not easy to tell your partner that. It's not easy to tell him that you feel like something is wrong with you, you know, because all of a sudden now you have this, like, little broken, you know, idea about yourself, you know, like something's wrong with me. How come it's not happening to other people? How come nobody's talking about it? Maybe it's just me. And, you know, this comes to, you know, the difference between sexual pleasure, you know, like people that are comfortable with saying that they have sex for pleasure, not for procreation or not for another purpose, you know, right, that's more, you know, acceptable, let's just say by religion or whatever you want to call it. So now you're saying, like, I'm in the best time of my life. I should be in the best time of my life. You know, I don't have my period anymore. I don't have to deal with all these things. I should know my body the most because I've experienced it the longest. But all of a sudden there's this thing and it's not fun for me anymore. That's tough. That's tough on relationships. It's tough to admit. And a lot of men don't know anything about it, or they think that it's their fault, like that they're not getting you ready enough, and it's them, and it has nothing to do with them. This is about your body and the physical changes it's experiencing. So now it's about finding something that, to me, that you can use that makes you feel more comfortable, that you can have fun with. Again, you know, and so that's what sex better is for me, is that's like the thing that makes it so that I can have a really good time, a pleasurable time when I'm with my partner.
That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the emotional effects that going through menopause would have on us, because you touched briefly on it, but I don't know, so...
Feeling like a man. Oh.
Yeah.
You know what? It pains me. It does pain me sometimes to think about it, because it's like I feel like it kind of takes away from my creativity and puts me into my logic a lot. You know, because, you know, one side of the brain, your creative side of the brain is much more fun and flowing and friendly, and that's your feminine side. And then your masculine side is like this kind of cut and dry, black and white side. And I find that, even myself, sometimes I can be very cutting, like I can be very direct and to the point, and like I can be the man if I need to be the man. But, I really like to work at being the female. Like, I love being the feminine side of me, and it took me a long time growing up because I was a tomboy to kind of get into that side of myself. So getting there and then having it and then kind of partially losing it is kind of a tough situation. But it can be done, but you just have to take time every day to focus on doing some things that you love that really help get you into your body. So some of the things that I recommend for that are like listening to music that you really love, that like make you want to move and make your body want to move. For me personally, I apply a little bit of sex butter in so that I can start to feel my body again, so I can get out of my head and into my body. I like to do exercise. Exercise gets me out of my head and into like my body. So I try and do things that for me help me get into that state. And for everybody, I think that that's different. Some people like to meditate. It's a different thing for each person, but I love to do that kind of stuff.
That's wonderful. And why is it important to keep the feminine alive?
That's where your creativity is. And I think that, when we lose our creativity, we kind of get old and stale. Like that's where all of your essence is. Like that's where your spark is, like the fire inside you. The fun part, like the creative, the eclectic, the fiery side. Like that's where mine is. And, it's like for me, I always want to have that part of myself. I don't want to get stale and boring.
Also, our counterparts, our mates, like that about us.
Of course.
Yeah, that's sweet. How different is sex butter than other products? You were telling us that you were looking at the labels of lubrication and how frightening they were. I mean, they really are. I mean, there's nothing on there except for aqua or water that would even resemble anything that anybody would know. So,
yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that, because people don't even, besides sexbutter.com or net, sexbutter.net, people don't even know some people don't even know where to buy lubrication. I mean, I do, but, or I did. So.
Well, I mean, okay, you can buy lubrication, but if you're going to go somewhere and buy lubrication, or even if you're going to buy it on the web, you should look at the ingredients, which it always has them somewhere, but sometimes it's much more readily available than others. To me, if I look at an ingredient and I can't read it, and it's something that's really totally crazy, and it doesn't sound like anything that I've ever heard of before, usually it's not something good for you. I mean, anything that has the word paraben in it, like they'll say methylparaben, ethylparaben, parabens have been known to cause cancer. So to me, like that's a bad sign. Any ingredients that have numbers and letters, like they're not even the name of something, those are usually pretty scary. The other thing that you can do is you can look up on the web. They have like a cosmetic site where you can look up the ingredient and see what it actually is. I mean, there's different names for things like propylene glycol is a common one. That's not a good one. Sweeteners like aspartame and sorbitol are in a lot of different lubrication products. Those are toxic, and especially to the mucous membrane areas.
Right.
So there's a lot of things. You just there's so many of them out there. It's not like there's 5 that I could say, okay, these are the 5 ingredients. There's really a lot. So what you want to do is you want to look at the, ingredients and make sure that they're things you've heard of before.
Right.
Or that they just don't sound crazy.
What I like about sex butter is all the natural yummy oils that are in there.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, look, cocoa butter, what's made out of cocoa butter? Dark chocolate, okay? It comes from the cacao, which is the actual bean. And then shea butter. Shea butter is like an amazing oil. A lot of times you'll notice it's on your lip gloss, things that you use for your lips. You'll see shea butter a lot. And of course everybody knows about coconut oil. Now people are using it for their body everywhere.
Right. I do. Yeah.
Grapeseed oil. Jojoba oil, which has been like a healing oil, an ancient one for a million years. And peppermint essential oil. I mean, like these are all things that you could look at and go, oh, I've heard of these things. Like
right.
They make sense to me.
Right. The amazing thing about sex butter is it does make you feel, I know it sounds funny, but it's not just about sex. I know that that's what you promote it as, but I've used it on my face. I've used it besides my vagina. I've used it. You use it in your hair. An amazing thing you told me.
I use it on my lips all the time.
You told me about someone who did a dental thing with it. They had to have they had to have surgery because their gums were receding, and so a week or two before the surgery, she started applying sex butter on her gums, and her gums started to regrow, and they didn't have to do the surgery. I want to tell you, last year when I moved back from Miami to LA, I had a cut, more or less, for about 4 months at least in my mouth. And every time I'd brush my teeth, it would gush blood, and I would touch it with my tongue, and it just felt very soft. And I'm like, this is really nasty stuff. And I can't believe I didn't tell you this. And I applied sex butter twice a day to it after I brushed my teeth. And I no longer have an infected area.
Yay! That's a good one. No, I didn't even know that. Wow. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and I've told you about giving it to my son before to put on his acne. And,
yes, I know
that helped.
Yeah. I mean, look, there are people that put some on a Q-tip and then they swish it around in their sinuses, like when they get allergies or colds or things like that.
So it's very cool that it's more than just for the vagina, and the penis, even though those are amazing parts. So.
Hey, look, you know what? It's great for, like if you ever get cramps, let's say in the bottom of your feet or anything, or, on your legs, it's awesome to use for cramps because the peppermint oil opens up the vascular system. So it's great for that purpose too. I mean, it's a great multi-purpose product. You don't even have to use it for sex. If people have an issue with the name, they can take off the top label. It's something that's really easily removable.
And you know what I just thought of? When you said cramps, I automatically think of menstrual cramps because I've had them my whole life, I think I've had them for 43 years.
Okay, I don't know if it'll work on that, just because...
Too deep or something?
It would have to go through a lot of layers of that, and so I don't honestly know if that would work for that, but I know, like, I've used them, like, on the bottom of my feet, on my ankles, because I would get like cramping in my legs.
Okay, wonderful. So let's talk about your gift that you're giving. There's like a two-parter thing here.
Yeah, two-parter thing. Okay, so one thing is I am creating an amazing video, and the title of the video is going to be "Changing Your Mind About Your Changing Body." Okay. And I'm going to give you all kinds of helpful hints on, things that you can do to mentally put yourself in a good space when you're kind of feeling down and blue about, what the physical changes are that are happening to you. And then I'm going to offer you like a 15% discount on a jar of sex butter. And I will teach you some things that you can do with the sex butter to really help make yourself feel good that have nothing to do with sex.
I like that. That's awesome, honey. What are some of the other thoughts that you'd like to leave us with, feminine essence or our changing bodies? Because really, it's funny, it's almost like puberty. It's a very confusing time for women when they go through this massive change. I'll just share that in the last couple months, I've had some fear that I've never had before. Oh no, I'm going to stop my beautiful cycle, which, it's a pain in the ass, but I like that I'm fluid and functioning. And then I think, am I not going to want sex anymore? Am I not going to be as pretty? Am I not going to be as sexy? Am I not going to feel as desirable? Those are things that went through my head when I was thinking about this. And I even thought, am I going to feel like I'm dead?
Well, there are things that you can do, fortunately, so that you don't have to feel like you're dead. And the other thing is that, my belief is that beauty comes from within.
It does.
So it's not just an outwardly physical thing, but if we feel good inside, like if we can do things to make ourselves feel good inside, that's what's going to come out on the outside. And so I think that it's really important. I mean, believe me, I have learned a ton from going through this and going through it earlier than all my friends. Like now, people that I went to high school with are just going through and have been for like the last year what I went through 9 years ago. And so I, was one of those people that everything happened to earlier. And now I'm glad because it's like I can have a different type of perspective on it instead of feeling like woe is me and poor me. It's like, okay, what can I do to help me feel better about myself today? Because nobody else is going to fix me. And I think that that's the biggest message that I want to leave people with is nobody is here to fix you. The only person who can fix you is you. So if you're feeling differently, first you have to recognize that you're feeling differently. And be accepting of the fact that, okay, things are changing. And that it's okay for me to feel differently, that I don't have to feel dead inside. I don't have to completely die. I don't have to become a new person. I just need to do certain things, create certain practices for myself to start feeling good so that I can feel like my old self again. And, and that's a decision I had to make for myself last year because I, in some ways, really let myself go last year because I went through a lot of loss last year and forgot about Bonnie. I had to take care of everything else, whether it was my business, whether it was my dog, whether it was my mother, and then dealing with the death of my mom. It's like I forgot about Bonnie. I forgot about the important things that Bonnie needs. And when April came around this year, like right at the end of March, I said to myself, you know what? Okay, enough is enough. You've had your pity party for long enough, and it's time for you to wake up and start feeling good again. And as soon as I made that decision and knocked out, and just wrote down 2 things that I was going to do to start doing that, every day, 2 things, and made that decision, everything changed in my life. Everything. But it took me having to actively recognize the issue and saying, yes, I'm going to do something about it.
It does. It absolutely does. You're right. I didn't have my direct mom pass on, but I had my mother-in-law of 30 some odd years pass on, and I was the main, not caregiver, but person watching out. I hired the nurses and all that, and we lived in the same home, and I said around the same time you did, enough is enough, and mine was far less than yours, but I knew that I needed to pick back up, and I also decided that this year, following that, so April until next April until forever, that I was going to put myself as priority and myself as first. And it's an amazing thing to continuously say, I'm not going to release any bit of myself. It only adds to our beauty, I think. So that's good you picked yourself up. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, honey. This has been an awesome interview, and you're just a sweet plethora of knowledge and beauty yourself.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been an honor, and I've loved it. And I love talking about this because I think so many people kind of push it away to the side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all in the next segment. Bye.